Hey everyone! Today we'll learn about keys in music, their purpose, and how to identify them. Let's dive straight in. So what is a key? The key of the music is the pitch or scale the composition is based on. Being aware of the key is helpful as the musician is aware of the notes they can expect in the piece. Additionally, a skilled musician could improvise as they know what chords would fit. A key is identified by the key signature, or the set of sharps or flats used in the music. It is important to note that a key signature will not contain sharps and flats, it will only contain one type of accidental. Each key signature represents two keys, a major and a minor key. Today, you'll learn how to identify the keys that a key signature can represent. Before we begin identifying key signatures, it is important to remember the order of sharps. This rule says that sharps in the key signature will always follow this order: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and finally B sharp. This can be remembered with the saying, "Fat cats go down alleys eating bologna." This is helpful because if you are informed how many sharps are in the key signature, you can immediately conclude what sharps they are. For example, if the key signature contains 4 sharps, they will be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp, the first 4 sharps in the order of sharps. A similar rule exists for flats. The order of flats is as follows: B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and finally F flat. This can also be remembered with the saying, bead, gum, candy, fruit. Note this order is the reverse order from the order of sharps. Now let's learn to identify the major keys of key signatures that contain sharps. Essentially, to identify the key, you need to raise the last sharp by a half step. Let's take the example where there are 3 sharps. Using the order of sharps, the key signature will contain F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. Using this strategy, we can identify the last sharp as G sharp. Going up one half step will bring us to A. Therefore, the major key represented by 3 sharps in the key signature is A major. Let's take another example. If a key signature has 5 sharps, they will be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. Since the last sharp is A sharp, to find the key we must raise A sharp by a half step, getting the key of B major. Thus, the major key represented by 5 sharps is B major. Let's take one last example. If a key signature has 7 sharps, they will be all the sharps from the order of sharps. As a result, the last sharp will be B sharp. Raising this a half step results in the key being C sharp major. Keep in mind, B sharp is the same pitch as C, so raising B sharp a half step provides C sharp, not C natural. To identify the major key of a key signature consisting of flats, you need to identify the second last flat. Let's take the example of 3 flats. Using the order of flats, the key signature will contain B, E, and A flat. Here, the second last flat is E flat. This means the major key represented by 3 flats in the key signature is E flat major. Let's take another example. If a key signature has 5 flats, they will be B, E, A, D, and finally G flat. Since the second last flat is D flat, the major key represented by 5 flats is D flat major. Now let's look at the 2 exceptions to identifying major keys. The first exception occurs when there are no sharps or flats in the key signature. The key signature is empty. This is a special scenario because there is no last sharp to raise, or no second last flat to identify. Hence, you will need to remember that the major key in correspondence to the empty key signature is C major. The second exception occurs when there is only one flat in the key signature. Since there is no second last flat to identify, it is impossible to identify the major key using the strategy above. Similarly, you will have to remember that the major key of one flat is F major. Now we know how to identify the major keys that key signatures can represent. But these same key signatures also represent minor keys. How do we identify those? Luckily, the process is quite simple. To identify a minor key, you must first know the major key the key signature represents. Then, you take the major key and go down 3 half steps. The corresponding minor key is known as the major key's relative minor, because it is the minor key that has the same key signature as the major key. Let's take a previous example. We have already identified that a key signature with 5 sharps corresponds to B major. Now traveling 3 half steps down will take us to A sharp, the natural, and finally G sharp. So, the relative minor of B major is G sharp minor. This means that the key signature of 5 sharps corresponds to B major but can also correspond to G sharp minor. Let's take one more example. Let's consider a key signature with 3 flats. The major key represented here is the second last flat or E flat major. Going down 3 half steps takes us to D, D flat, and finally C. This means the key signature of 3 flats not only represents E flat major, but also C minor. However, when converting major keys to their relative minor key, avoid this mistake. Though you can argue that G sharp and A flat are technically the same pitch, you cannot say their key signatures are the same. This is because the key signature of G sharp minor contains sharps while the key signature of A flat minor consists of flats. This becomes a problem when converting major keys to their relative minor. In our previous example where B major becomes G sharp minor, how can we say that the relative minor of B major is G sharp minor and not A flat minor? The logic behind this is a more advanced topic, but to simplify, the distance between the major key and its relative minor must be a third. In other words, the letters of the pitch of the major key and the relative minor key must be 2 letters apart. Using our example of B major, going down 2 letters gives us A, and then G. Therefore the relative minor of B major must have a G in it. This helps us choose G sharp minor over A flat minor. Let's take one more example using the key of F sharp major. Firstly, by going down 2 letters, we get E, and then D. Therefore the relative minor of F sharp major must have the letter D in it. Going down 3 half steps from F sharp gives us F, E, and then E flat. However, since the minor key must have the letter D in it, the relative minor of F sharp major is D sharp minor. Now we know how to identify the major and minor keys a key signature can represent. But what if you are given the key name and are asked to find the corresponding key signature? This is a fairly simple 2-step process. Firstly, convert the key to its relative major if it is given in minor. Keep in mind the relative major will have the same key signature as the minor key. Then, reverse the flats or sharps strategy to identify the key signature. Before we progress, we should know when to choose the sharp strategy versus the flat strategy. In short, if the key name has a flat in it, the key signature will contain flats. This is because the key name must be an accidental in the scale. Keep in mind however that F major, our exception from before, will also contain flats. Other than this, all other key signatures representing major keys will contain sharps. Now let's take the example of E major. Since it is in the major form, we don't have to do anything for the first step. Then, we identify whether the key signature has sharps or flats. Since there is no flat in the key name and the key is not F major, we can confirm E major will contain sharps. Next, we reverse the sharp strategy. We know the last sharp raised by a half step provides the key name. Therefore the last sharp must be 1 half step lower than the key name. As a result, the last sharp of the key signature for E major is D sharp. Now we can list the sharps in the order of sharps until we reach D sharp. This means the key of E major will have F, C, G, and D sharp. Let's take a slightly more complicated example, this time with the key of F minor. Since the key is in a minor form, we first find the relative major by this time going up 3 half steps instead of down. This brings us to F sharp, G, and finally A flat. Remember to use A flat and not G sharp because we need to maintain the 2-letter distance between the letter names of the major and minor key. Now we need to identify the key signature of A flat major. Since the key name contains flats, the key signature will also contain flats. Remembering that the second last flat is the key name, we can say that A flat is also the second last flat of the key signature. We then use the order of flats and go 1 flat past A flat. This tells us the key signature of A flat major consists of B, E, A, and D flat. And since A flat major and F minor are relative keys, this same key signature applies to F minor as well. One interesting fact to note is that not all keys will have a corresponding key signature. For instance, the keys of D sharp, E sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B sharp major will not have a key signature that follows the rules above. This is because in these cases, some of the notes in their key will contain double sharps which cannot be notated into a key signature. The same issue arises with F flat major, which cannot be notated due to its B double flat. So that's everything. Today, we learned how to identify major and minor keys from key signatures and explored their relationship as relative keys. We covered the order of sharps and flats, the exceptions to the rules, and even how to reverse the process to find key signatures for specific keys. Additionally, we touched on why some keys don't fit into standard key signatures. With this foundation, you're now equipped to interpret and work confidently with key signatures in your musical journey. Thanks for watching, and happy music making!